Ladies and gentlemen, the American jury and Bulldog Nation, in this day and age of our United States government not enforcing antitrust and monopoly laws and allowing corporations to get bigger and bigger and bigger, that same thing is going around this country as it relates to health care. You have healthcare systems getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the more complicated it is, the more you're going to have that, because a doctor, all the regulations and rules, just can't go out there and hang up a shingle anymore because the bureaucracy suffocates them. The same thing is going on in the legal business. You have law firms getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and smaller law firms getting smaller and smaller, and people retiring. You ask anybody in the law game and the medical game, ask them if they're having a good time. Doctors and lawyers out there aren't having a good time. And what happens is these freaking law firms just get bigger and bigger. Cincinnati Business Courier, and I mocked him, had George Vincent, the managing partner, Dinsmore Shoal, on their cover, and they talked about how they're growing across the country, so forth and so on. And you know what? It's just bad. And you know who is behind the monopolies in this country? Do you know who's behind all the laws? Do you know who's behind the growth of corporate health care? You know who's behind the growth of these large law firms? Those large law firms. Those large law firms across this country represent big-time corporate America. They're the ones that represent them. They're the ones that control who gets into Congress, who gets in your state house, who gets elected judges, on and on and on. America is becoming more and more centralized, and it also includes the legal game. And you know what? The number of law firms, for example, like Deters Law, and people like me who have the cojones, the wherewithal, the guts, the craziness, the sadomasochism, and the money to fight them decreases every single day. Because more and more people say the hell with it. Now, this is funny. Those big law firms leave alone those little moms and pops that are just doing deeds and wills. Why? They don't want that business because they don't make any money. Those small mom and pops, what they charge, who wants to get a will done by a Dinsmore Shoal lawyer? It might cost you $9,000. But they are creating these monopolies. And let me tell you what they do. Now you have to understand, Deters Law battles these law firms every single day. My dad, the crotch grabber, and Gay Turd have hired two of the largest law firms in Cincinnati. Do you know what they immediately do? They assign 3 and 4 lawyers in their firm to that case. All their names go on what's called a pleading, and they all start billing. Bill, we call it. And they bill. And they can bill from wherever they are. Despite the pandemic, law firms' billing went up. You know why? Because they can sit at home, fall out of bed, and say, I did 8 hours of research on this, whether they did it or not, and they put that down. There ought to be a serious civil criminal RICO action against law firms sending out false bills. Where did we see that before? That's right, in The Firm. You believe it? The Tom Cruise movie. That goes on every day. I cannot believe more clients of these big law firms don't question the bills that they get, because they should. But they assign these lawyers, bill. The other thing they do is they lie. These are legal gangsters. They will put in pleadings and they will say things that are factually untrue, legal research untrue, and they do it over and over again, and no judge ever does a damn thing to them. But by golly, if you're a little guy and you accidentally cite the wrong law, oh my God. Rule 11, that's the civil rule that allows sanctions. Rule 11. Rule 11's never enforced against big law firms. Now, I got to tell you something funny. Their arrogance knows no bounds. And I have to tell you a recent story, and I'm going to name him by name because I can't stand the guy. Dave Kramer is the head of the litigation department at DBL, formerly Deters Benzinger Lavelle, but it's Dressman Benzinger Lavelle now because they want to keep the DBL, which they started using when my dad was still there. Dave Kramer wasn't even a real equity partner at the time that I left the firm because they didn't think enough of him to make him an owner of the firm. I don't know if he does now or not. But the guy is a goober. Dave Kramer is the head of the litigation department. I can tell you right now, he couldn't carry my freaking briefcase. Now, this guy, his claim to fame is he was involved in one case against Jeff Feiger that was a brain baby case where they got a defense verdict even though there was supposed to be a settlement. Dave Kramer didn't do all the work. It was Jim Triona, and Dave Kramer acts like, I defended this case. Dave Kramer, unbelievable. But here is the latest story. We have this case, a class action lawsuit, and Alan Statman and our lawyers were in court the other day arguing this case. And this actually came out of Dave Kramer's mouth. Dave Kramer told the judge that they needed to win the motion because if they didn't win, they were going to be fired. And there would be different lawyers at the counsel table next time. This is a first. Ladies and gentlemen, the American jury and Bulldog Nation, Dave Kramer and DBL and now big law firms are now making arguments to judges in the courtroom on the record that if we don't win, we're going to be fired, so you better vote for us. I'm not kidding you. I'm not making this up. That really happened. That is the arrogance of these lawyers. In that case, by the way, they submitted affidavits, and the affidavit said XYZ. And the judge looked at Dave Kramer and said, I'm sorry that I'm old school and think just because somebody on your side says something is true that I'm supposed to accept it as true. Good for that judge. Think about that. These big law firms are so arrogant, they think judges need to accept everything they say is true, or else they'll get fired. Law in America today. By the way, that same mentality is what all the defense firms do in the Durrani litigation representing these hospitals. They do the exact same thing. This is the Bulldog. Every dog has their day. I'm not kidding you. You can trace every problem. I'll do it for you. You text me or email me the problem. You can trace every problem in this country back to large defense firms in this country. And you remember, devil's advocate. What did Al Pacino play in The Devil? Where did he go to screw up the world? Law. Remember that speech he gave? It was true. It was true. The law, large defense firms, Satan themselves. This is the Bulldog. Every dog has their day. Have a great day.